Welcome, Bronco Nation, to my final part of my three-part series previewing the Boise State 2021 football season. This is probably the most exciting one that I'm going to be doing, at least for me, going through and previewing the schedule for Boise State. I'm so pumped for that first game September 2nd against UCF. I'm going to be there. Make sure that you tune in for that game. And if you're going to that game, hey, see if you can find me. Be great to meet some of you guys. Again, not living in Boise, I don't get a chance to meet too many other Boise State fans. Probably most of the reason I'm doing these videos is just a chance to reach out. Anyhow, make sure that you, if you see me there, make sure you look me up. But that first game, September 2nd against UCF, I'm going to be going through, going to be previewing all of the Boise State games this season. Going to be looking at the matchups, looking at key impact players, looking at how these teams performed last year potentially and how that might impact their performance this year. Real quick preview overall, not going to be as long as my last video. If you haven't seen my last videos, make sure you go back and watch the previous two of this series. First one where I review or preview the new coaching staff additions and the new player additions to the Boise State team. And in the second video, I go through, long video, but definitely worth it, go through and I look at the offense, defense, special teams, how those teams performed last year, key players this year, and at different starting positions, predicted starters, and then how those units are going to perform this year. I give a prediction on that. Also going to give a prediction going through this video today, so make sure you stick around. I'm going to give predictions on how Boise State is going to do in each of these matchups, and I'll do that throughout and then kind of give an overall view of the season overall. So, starting right off then, that first UCF game, September 2nd, 3 weeks away. So pumped. I'm going to be predicting, I'll also be predicting, giving you what I think each of these teams that we're going to be facing how they're going to do this year. Just get an overall overall record, I think, for each of these, end of season record for each of these teams. And then I'll also give the Athlon Sports predicted record, and you can be the judge of which you think is going to be the most accurate. Really, this season, hardest one to predict ever of any of the season that I've ever looked at. With COVID putting in so many wrenches into the normal grind, it just we really don't know how teams are going to perform based on, you can't look at last year, because last year was completely abnormal. It was almost like a practice season. Certain teams played more non-conference games than others. Some played no non-conference games. Boise State, the only Mountain West team to play a non-conference game. Some teams played a full season. Some teams only played 4 games. It's really impossible to predict, but we're going to give our best shot, so let's jump right in here. All right, first game at UCF. I'm predicting that UCF is going to be one of Boise State's better opponents this year. I think they're going to go 10-2. Athlon Sports has them going 9-4. In 2020, they went 6-4, and they were within one possession in 3 games. They were within one possession of potentially being a team that would have been 9-1 versus 6-4. Tulsa, Memphis, Cincinnati, each of those games they only lost by possession. So this is a good UCF team. They return a lot of players from last year, especially their key quarterback, Dylan Gabriel, who's going to be my impact player for UCF, the guy to watch out for. And of course, new head coach for Auburn with Gus Malzahn, the former Auburn coach. Of course, Brian Harsin replaced. I have another video on that. I'll link it in the description. I'll write myself a note here real quick. I'll put that link in the description where I I react to Brian Harsin's leaving. It's a good video. It's my most watched with almost 8,000 views. I definitely go back and watch that. But anyhow, Gus Malzahn replaces comes in the head coach here at UCF. A guy who could never really get it done at Auburn, but still, I think, a top-tier coach, at least above-average coach, who's going to be very hard to compete against UCF, going to keep them on a high plane. So this first game against UCF is going to tell so many things about this Boise State team. Both teams, new head coaches, both teams returning great quarterbacks. Boise State returning running back, UCF doesn't return running back. There's some parallels and there's some differences. We're going to really get to tell a lot about both teams. If Boise State can get past UCF with a win, I think we are going to be in store for a very special season under Coach Andy Avalos. If they can't, I think that it's going to be a rebuilding year with everything that implies. So my prediction, Boise State comes in with a completely rebranded offense and defense that is able to keep them in the game long enough to get that win against UCF. Boise State has played well against Florida teams in the past, of course, coming in and playing really well against Florida State. And this is a very similar Boise State team to that 2019 team. When you look at overall players and who they lost, they really didn't lose that many people from last year, besides a couple of key tight end and a key cornerback. Besides that, Boise State returns pretty much their entire team, key cornerbacks. They return pretty much their entire team. So I think this is a team that can come in there. I definitely think the 2019 team, healthy, could have beat UCF. And I think rebranded and refocused, this Boise State team is going to be able to come in there and beat UCF. So I think Boise State's going to get off to a 1-0 start against UCF. Second game against UTEP. Bottom of the barrel Conference USA team. Should not be a challenge. Should be a nice little cool down game, little practice game in between while they prep for that OSU matchup the next week. So should not be an issue. UTEP went 3-5 last year, which is an upward trend from them from going 1-11 in 2019. Not a very good team. Bottom of the barrel in the worst Group of 5 conference by far. Should not be an issue. Impact player for UCF to keep an eye out on. Really nobody on the roster. I think Boise State should steamroll these guys. But defensive end, Amaya Wool. I can't even pronounce his name. Anyhow, Amaya Wool, the defensive end, he had 6 sacks last year, so a contributor who can go out there and perform, so maybe keep an eye on him, but shouldn't be an issue. Predict another win against UTEP. I'm predicting that they go 5-7 this year. Athlon Sports is not as generous. They think they're going to go 3-9. All right, OSU. Now this right here, there we go, perspective. This right there, that's the big matchup. That's the one. Chance for revenge. I'm going to have him hanging upside down at least until we play him. We'll see what happens. I had this when we used to live in Oklahoma, and I had a cousin who was a kicker on the team, so I was given this banner. So I had it in the house, and that season that Boise State played them a few seasons ago, a few years back, I hung it upside down in the house, and when we lost, I was so upset by that game. I almost threw it away, but I thought, you know what? We're playing them again. They're on the schedule. I'll keep it for one more year. So here they are, upside down again. We're going to go out there. We're going to flip them. That's the fan side of me. I hope we go out there and flip them. The analyst side of me thinks that this is going to be a narrow loss. Unfortunately, I think that next year's Boise State team could go out there and beat OSU. I think that Andy Avalos is going to put Boise State back in the driver's seat to be the top team in the Mountain West, top team in the Group of 5. I think Andy Avalos, the future under Andy Avalos is very bright, but I think that this year's team, at least offensively, I think they can get it done. Defensively, I think there's just too many question marks, too many struggles from last year. Even with a great defensive mind like Andy Avalos, I think that it's just going to be just too much of a struggle against a great OSU team who was 8-3 last year, and they were within 10 points of being 10-1. The 2 games that they lost, if you take the regular season games they lost, if you take those games and you add them together, the margin of error was only 10 points. That's the margin of victory in those games. So this is a team that's almost 10-1. I'm predicting they go 9-3. Athlon Sports thinks they'll go 8-4, but they have a great quarterback in Spencer Sanders. So not the only Spencer in Big 12 who can get it done. Of course, Spencer Rattler over at Oklahoma. But Spencer Sanders, who had over 2,007 yards passing, 14 touchdowns, and then running back Desmond Jackson, who was second rushing on the team with 547 yards and 5.5 yards per average carry. I just think that they're going to be too much of an offensive threat for Boise State to handle, at least this early on in the season. If Boise State was playing them at the end of the season, when Avalos has had really a full season to put his mentality and his perspective into these Boise State players and really get them to buy into his model and learn that and develop those skills, I think Boise State could play them tight and potentially win this. This early in the season, I think it's just not going to happen. Just going to be a 2-loss. So Boise State going to be out to 2-1 their first 3 games of the season. Okay, Utah State though back into the Mountain West. Fourth game in here at Utah State. Oh, I forgot to mention that OSU game is at home. So that's really the only kind of like 50-50 toss-up kind of silver lining. At least the game's at home. So if there's a chance for Boise State to beat them, the best chance is for them to beat them at home. So if it's going to happen, if it's in the cards, it's in the cards for it to happen at home. If Boise State was playing them away, I'd say there's 0 chance of them winning. With Boise State playing them on the blue, with hopefully full crowd capacities back, they've been promised to full crowd capacities back. We'll hope. Knock on wood. I got some wood around here. Knock on wood that here we go. Knock on wood that nothing happens COVID that prevents that. So full capacity crowd. Boise State determined to avenge that loss. I think that they're going to play their hearts out, and they have the best chance of beating them here on the blue than they do anywhere else. But again, like I said, Not sure it's going to happen this year. Hope I'm proven wrong there. All right, next game then. Utah State at Utah State. I'm predicting they go 5-7. Athlon Sports thinks they're going to go 4-8. So this is not a top tier Utah State game. They're still trying to recover from Jordan Love. Last year went 1-5. They have new starting quarterbacks, running backs, 2 new starting wide receivers, and new starting tight ends. So this is a completely remodeled, rebranded team. Their best impact player is definitely going to be the Arkansas State grad transfer, Logan Bonner, quarterback, who had 1,863 yards passing, 18 touchdowns. So quarterback who's skilled, who can get it done. But he's not a Jordan Love level type quarterback. And I think that Utah State is going to struggle again. Should not be too difficult of a win for Boise State. All right, moving on to Nevada. This is another big one. So UCF and the OSU games are big, but the Nevada game, return the rivalry because of the way that the Mountain West format works, where you play certain teams from the other side of the conference every 2 years on a swap. A lot of teams a lot of players on the current Boise State roster have never played the big rivalry games. They haven't played Nevada, they haven't played Fresno State, and they haven't played San Diego State. And all those games are coming back this year. It's going to be an awesome chance Boise State to go up there and prove that they're still the top dog in the Mountain West. And this is a big one with Nevada. Nevada might be one of the best teams. OSU, I think, is the best talented teams, but Nevada might be one of the most complete teams that Boise State faces this year. This is one of the best Nevada teams I've seen in a while. They remind me much more of the Colin Kaepernick type era of Nevada than recent Nevadas, even recent Nevadas under the likes of Fajardo. This is a Nevada team that can go out and get it done. It has one of the best quarterbacks in the Mountain West under Carson Strong, who threw for almost 3,000 yards last year. And a great running back in Tawa Tuea, who can go out there, get it done, a grinder who can pound it up and really just wear you out. Huge guy, 675 yards and 4 touchdowns. Last year, Nevada went 7-2, and they were within 14 points cumulative point total from their losses of 9-0. So margin of victory there, or margin of defeat, was only 14 points. They almost went 9-0, had losses to Hawaii and San Jose State, and definitely much improved from the 2019 season when they were 7-6. So this is a Nevada team that's hungry, a team that's tasted success last year and was this close to Mountain West Championship game. I think if they got in the Mountain West Championship game, they would have beat Boise State, especially the way Boise State played. And I think Nevada had a chance going if they'd gone undefeated regular season and beaten Boise State in the Mountain West Championship game, they could have been the team that went and played in that New Year's Six Bowl. I mean, this is a good Nevada team. Having said that, this is Boise State. This is Nevada on the blue. Boise State's going to be stinging from that OSU loss on the blue. This is a rival that they want to go out there and beat. This is a team that's beaten them before in painful ways. The most painful Boise State game I've ever watched, of course, the 2010 game. This is a bitter, I would even say hated rival in Nevada. They have one of the most toxic fan bases, or at least when you go to their stadium. It's just, this is a big rivalry game for Boise State. So I think that it's an incredibly close game where you see amazing performances, clutch performances by key players on offense and defense, and Boise State pulls off, may I even say, the upset. It's a win, I think, but I think it is an upset because I think Nevada is probably it might even be the better team here, but I think Boise State comes in and beats Nevada, wins on the blue. At least I think Nevada might be the better team this early on in the season. I think Boise State has the talent overall to be the best team in the Mountain West, and I think they are stat-wise. But Nevada has players who proved they had success last year and been working together for a while. Anyhow, so I just wanted to clarify that statement. Boise State comes in, wins that game at home against Nevada, and improves to 2-0 Mountain West wise and 4-1 on the season. All right, next game, Air Force. Again, another rival, not a hated rival. We have great respect for the Air Force here. As Boise State fans, we are great respect for the military, but they are definitely a rival because they've had our number the last few years. It's 3-3. The series is tied 3-3. They definitely know how to beat us, and they've done in the past. That option is one of the most difficult for Boise State. No matter how talented their defense is, they have always struggled against that option. It's just one of those schemes that for whatever reason, it just grinds hard against that Boise State defense, and it does not match, and they're able to make big plays. Playing against Air Force's skeleton squad, Air Force went 3-3 last season. I think the series is not 3-3. Boise State actually owns the overall in the series. I think it's 6-4 right now. I'd have to look that up. I'll put it in the remarks. I'll correct myself on that if I'm wrong. But this is an Air Force team that has beaten Boise State consistently in the past. That was my main point. Anyhow, playing against the skeleton squad last year, because Air Force sent a lot of their players home before when they thought the season was canceled. Mountain West brought the season back. Air Force decided to let their players have, which is a rarity for the Air Force Academy, to let their players have basically a redshirt year, and they're going to play for, they're going to have one more year of eligibility to play. Of course, during that COVID rule, every team does. But they were playing basically against a very skeleton squad team, a team that was missing a lot of their best second string, third string type players, and really just kind of had really no depth in any position. Even though they were playing skeleton squad, they still went 3-3. Their only losses were very tight. 6-17 loss against San Jose State. Played San Jose State better than Boise did, and a 17-10 loss against Army. And then they were able to put up, even though it was a 19-point margin of victory for Boise State, they were still able to put up 30 points against Boise State, and that's without having that depth, which is really what helps Air Force be able to succeed. And that's without their best quarterback, who was, of course, kicked off the team due to off-field issues in Hammond the third. So this is an Air Force team that I think is very talented. I'm predicting they go 9-3 this year. Athlon Sports thinks they're going to go 7-5. I think that's a horrible guesstimate. I think Air Force is going to go 9-3. I think they're going to be outstanding. They definitely have, their defense is definitely a potential weak spot for them. I think that's something that Boise State can definitely pry into and exploit. But overall, they're going to be a great team. I think they still got to find a quarterback capable of replacing Hammond. And Zeke Daniels is potentially able to do that, though he didn't necessarily show that last year. And they need to be able to work the passing game back into their offensive scheme again, because that's really what set them apart and made them so dangerous the last few years. But impact player-wise, Brad Roberts, the fullback there, 461 yards, 5 touchdowns, big player, and just Air Force overall is always scary. But I think Boise gets the win, Air Force at home, and improves to 3-0 Mountain West-wise. And I'm losing track here, but I think that's 5-1 overall so far. So BYU at BYU. Now, this is not the same BYU team that came in last year and crushed Boise State 51-17 in the blowout. This is also not the same Boise State team that was depleted, injury-prone, and not having that same unit cohesion defense, so that team defense that's needed. So it's not the same BYU team, and it's not the same Boise State team. This is, I think, a better Boise State team and a worse BYU team. This is going to, hopefully, I mean, the last 2 times that Boise State has played BYU, neither time has Boise State had their starting quarterback. Last year, Sears was in, and then he got injured. I think he could have beaten BYU. Watch my review of that video. Go back in my videos and watch my review of the game. I talk about what went on. But we were playing with our third-string quarterback. Both years that we've played BYU, the last 2 years, we've played with our third-string quarterback in the game. Second string in 2019 and third string last year. So both years we've not had our starting quarterback in. If we have our starting quarterback in, Halani's healthy, and the defense is playing up to snuff, Boise State's going to come in and get this win. Finally, be able to rub that mark off. Sorry, my battery went low there. Finally be able to rub that streak that BYU has on us off our backs and be able to get that win. This is a BYU team that went 11-1 in 2020, but again, I said not that same team coming back. They also lost their top receiver in Dax Milne. They do have some key impact players. Gunnar Romney, who put up 133 yards against Boise State. Baylor Romney, who has a win against Boise State in his first start in 2019, and Tyler Alleguer, who had over 1,000 yards rushing and 13 touchdowns. So this is still a dangerous BYU team, but I think this Boise State team is good enough to go in and get that win. They're definitely motivated. They're hungry. I think they're going to do it. All right, we're almost here. We're going to cruise down the last few games here. So that's a win for Boise State there. Improves to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7-1 is my prediction so far. All right, Boise State goes in Colorado State. Colorado State going to be one of the bottom tier teams, Mountain West again. I'm predicting 3-9. Athlon Sports a little more generous, thinks they're going to go 4-8. 2020 went 1-3. Boise State has had a couple of close calls in the past against Colorado State, but shouldn't be an issue this year. Tight end Trey McBride is an impact player for them, NFL talent for sure, 330 yards receiving and 4 touchdowns. Big guy, but Boise State shouldn't have any issues. This is a rough stretch with Nevada, Air Force, and BYU in back-to-back-to-back games. So a game against Colorado State, nice game to be able to kind of refresh. They need to be prepared against like any team, but refresh and come in focused for the next game, which is going to be against Fresno State at Fresno State. Fresno State predicted 8-4. Athlon Sports predicting them 7-5. 2020 season went 3-3 with a loss to New Mexico. They have some upward momentum after going 4-8. It is a rivalry game, that Milk Can Trophy. They have an impact player in Jake Herney, who's one of the above average, one of the top quarterbacks in the Mountain West. I think he's definitely behind both of Boise State's quarterback, Strong in Nevada's quarterback, Carson Strong, and Nick Starkel. But he is a good quarterback. I think he's also behind Cordero. Hawaii. Mountain West just stacked the quarterbacks this year. But he is a good quarterback, and one we definitely need to be worried, a little bit concerned about, and definitely make sure that we're covering him up on defense. But Jake Herney and running back Ronnie Rivers, who had over 500 yards rushing last year, I think it's going to be an interesting game. I think it's going to be fun to watch, but I think Boise State gets the win in Fresno. All right, this brings us to Wyoming. Now, every year, Boise State loses a game that they shouldn't. It's been happening since pretty much 2010. Boise State goes out there, and there's a game on the schedule that, for whatever reason, they on paper, they should go out there and win it, and they just don't. Now, I don't think that Wyoming is a better team than Boise State. They went 2-4 last year. They did have some injuries they were dealing with. I'm predicting they're going 7-5 this year. Athlon Sports thinks 8-4. But I think that they have the talent on the roster with Sean Chambers, who is a great quarterback for them, who was injured last year, so that's part of the reason they only went 2-4. But they're a team that Craig Bull, great coach for them, and they have the talent on the roster. And Boise State just always, for whatever reason, they have under Brian Harsin, and they even did under Chris Peterson. They've dropped a game that they shouldn't, especially under Brian Harsin. I think they're going to drop it to Wyoming. I think Wyoming's going to be that loss this year that despite everything, Boise State ends up losing. They shouldn't, but they do. Now, that might just be the pessimism in me, being used to the last few years. Andy Avalos, it's a new era. It's a new dawn. It's a completely new team. Andy Avalos teams might not do that. And that's my prayer, that we return to those dominant teams, those early Chris Peterson type teams, those Boise State teams that went out there and just destroyed everyone in their path and won the games they were supposed to win and didn't, and won the games even they weren't supposed to win. I think that we're going to get there. I do. I think we're going to get there eventually, but I just don't think we're at that level yet. So I think that this ends up being a loss. Sean Chambers is going to have a good season. So is Valladay, the Wyoming running back, who had over 500 yards rushing last year. And even without Sean Chambers and in bad weather, Boise State still only beat Wyoming 9-17. So they've had Boise State's number in the past. They, of course, with that great win previously at Wyoming. So I think this is a game that just ends up not going quite Boise State's way, and Boise State's end up dropping this one to Georgia, 2 losses on the season. Homecoming game, next game up is going to be Boise State, New Mexico coming into Boise. The Wyoming game is also going to be in Boise. 4-8 is what I'm predicting for Wyoming. 5-7 Athlon Sports. So there shouldn't be too much of a challenge. Sorry, talking too much. Shouldn't be too much of a challenge, but 2-5 last year. The Boise State game against them canceled. I think that would have been another win for Boise if we played them. The Kentucky grad transfer is going to be an impact player for them coming in. Terry Wilson, he has over 1,100 yards passing and 7 touchdowns with 4 interceptions. So I think he's going to be better Wyoming quarterback than quarterbacks they've had in the past. But still, sorry, I said Wyoming, didn't I? New Mexico quarterback they have in the past. And they did end the year on a 2-0 streak. So they lost 5 in a row and then they won 2 to finish the year. So they're coming in with some momentum, wins against Wyoming and Fresno State there. But I don't think this should be an issue of Boise State, especially on homecoming. Boise State should definitely go get that win there. And then final game of the season, San Diego State, another big rivalry game there to finish season. This is a great schedule of just very, very exciting matchups for Boise State. 6-6 I'm predicting for San Diego State this year. Athlon Sports has them going 7-5. They went 4-4 last year. And they had their running back, Greg Bull, actually had 4 straight games of 100 yards before his injury. So, but they are replacing their quarterback. They're replacing several players across the line. So I think it's going to be a little bit of a off rebuilding year for San Diego State. Greg Bell is a player to watch. Tight end Daniel Bellinger, another player to watch. And San Diego State has had Boise State's number. Unlike my last stat, again with Air Force, I actually am correct on this one. They are tied 3-3 with Boise State, and they own the win from last time Boise State played them in 2018 in the 19-13 loss. Fresno State, by the way, also beat Boise State the last time we played them. So this is a little bit of a revenge tour as well. Games against OSU, Fresno State, and San Diego State, 3 teams that beat Boise State previously. But I think Boise State is going to handle San Diego State fine to finish the season with an awesome 10-2 record overall, 7-1 in the Mountain West, and go play in that Mountain West Championship game with a win against San Diego State. Now, having said that, I'm predicting 10-2, but I also think that if things end up going badly, especially with that UCF game, if we drop that UCF game to start, I think Boise State could end up dropping the OSU, like I've already said. If they lose to UCF, I think they'll also lose to Nevada. I could see them losing to Air Force, and I could even see them losing to BYU. So I'm predicting 10-2, but this could also be a team that could go 9-3 or 8-4. So this is a team that could either be really good if the right changes are made, if the things I've talked about in my last video, on my previous videos, if the right changes on the offensive line, the right changes in the secondary and really defense overall, and the right changes in offense to really get an offense that goes out there and fights for it and doesn't quit after the first half, but keeps pushing and throwing points up on the board, even when Boise State's ahead, just keeps going after it like it's 0-0. Tim Plow, a guy who said he doesn't look at the scoreboard till it's 50-50, so I think that's going to happen. But if those things don't happen, this could be a team that has a very rough year, especially by Boise State standards, to implement the changes necessary to get forward into the next era of Boise State football. So I don't think that's going to happen. I think Boise State's going to go 10-2. I think they're going to have a very good year, especially for a rebuilding year with new staff and a revitalized offense and defense. But it is also a season that's not guaranteed. It's going to be in the balance the whole time. Boise State needs to come out prepared for every single game. So, having said that, I think they're going to go 10-2. I think they're going to face San Jose State is the team I'm predicting to win the West. So I think they're going to face San Jose State, get a chance for revenge. Nick Starkel, I think, is going to have an incredible year. I think they're going to drop that game to USC to start. But then I think that they're going to get off to the races and go 11-1 to finish it off. I think they're going to blow through the Mountain West. I think they're going to win every single game they play in the Mountain West. I think they're going to finish the season. I think that's on an 11-game win streak there. I think they're going to be ranked. So I think Boise State versus San Jose State in the Mountain West Championship game. The Athlon Sports is predicting Boise State versus Nevada. But with the 9-4 Boise State versus an 8-5 Nevada, I forgot to mention that I'm predicting 10-2. Athlon Sports is actually predicting 9-4. So they think Boise State is going to go the other way that I was saying before, but I don't think they are. Main point is I think it's going to be an 11-1. A 10-2 Boise State team versus an 11-1 San Jose State team, with Boise State getting that win to go 11-2 overall and finish off a great year versus San Jose State there in the bowl game, because I think they're going to be motivated. I think they're going to have enough experience. I think San Jose State is a team with they're good, but they have enough vulnerable patches where a well-coached Boise State team, especially one who's able to go 10-2, would be able to go in there and win that Mountain West Championship game, especially under a motivated team that's buying into the new energized head coach that's really bringing in a lot of new changes and energy with him that I think is going to propel Boise State into the future. So I think they're going to go 11-2 and win the Mountain West Championship. That's my final prediction for Boise State overall. Now, real quick, what does that mean? I know I'm getting close to 30 minutes here, but I'm going to finish this off real quick. What are Boise State's chances of going to a New Year's Six this year? Well, I think this is going to be the toughest New Year's Six selection ever. I think there's going to be a ton of teams from the group of 5 that are really pressing that committee to make a tough decision, which is why the whole system sucks. It shouldn't be just one group of 5 team that gets a shot at it. They should be evaluated the same as any Power 5 team. The biases should be cut out of the committee. I have another video, great video. I'll link that. I won't link in the description, but go back and watch it. It's my solution to fixing the college football playoffs and the FBS period. But this is why the system sucks, is that group of 5 teams that are excellent teams get evaluated with incredible bias, so they don't actually get a shot at going, and only one of them does. So which is going to be the Cinderella that's going to get to go to the bowl? Well, I think there's going to be really 6 teams, maybe 7, that are going to really compete for that. I think Cincinnati, who I'm predicting going 11-2 this year. UAB, who I think is going to go 10-3. Toledo, who I think is going to have a great year, go 12-1 in a very weak conference. UCF, who I think is going to be good, 10-3. Marshall, who I think could go 11-2. And then San Jose State, I think, could go 11-2, and Coastal, I think, could go 12-1. But the team, I think, of everyone, and I haven't actually said their name yet, the team I think that's going to actually go to that New Year's Six game this year, I think it's going to be Louisiana. Even if Boise State has a great year, even if they're able to go 11-2 here, unless Boise State is at the end of the season with one loss, and that one loss is Oklahoma State, I think that Louisiana is going to take the cake here. I think they're going to go 12-1. I think they're going to lose that game to Texas that they play, but I think they're going to run the Sun Belt, who is actually a pretty good conference this year with Coastal and Louisiana both ranked in the coaches poll preseason, and Appalachian State, a pretty good team in that division. I think Louisiana is going to run the table after losing to Texas. I think they're going to be that highest ranked team, especially with the benefit of already probably coming to the season ranked, where Boise State won't. So there's going to be a little bit of that bias there that's going to propel them forward. So I think that Boise State is going to have a great year, but just not going to be good enough with the competition that's out there to win that New Year's Six game. Now, having said that, that's my prediction, but I think that Boise State's going to be in the mix. They're going to be there, and I'm going to discuss it all year. I'll talk about what Boise State's chances to get in New Year's Six, how they could get there. I did a whole series of videos like that last year. Unless the season just starts going downhill and they have no chance. But as long as there's a chance, I'll do some videos talking about how Boise State could get to that New Year's Six and giving some predictions there. But I think Boise State's going to have a great year, but I just think it's going to, just with the competition that's out there, I don't think they're going to go to New Year's Six, but I think it's going to be a great first year for head coach Andy Avalos. I think they're going to go get to play in that new bowl game in California, that new Mountain West bowl game there. I think they're going to have a great season, and I think the future is incredibly bright for Boise State going forward. So, sorry these videos were so long, but you know what? It's going to be a long season, and it's a big team with a lot of big changes, and there's no way to make them shorter. So, you know what? I'm not sorry for their length, because I think that I said what I needed to say on them. So, thank you for watching these videos. Make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any Boise State content throughout the year. I'm going to be making weekly videos, keys to the game, reviews of the game, top 25 rooting guide, Boise State alumni in the NFL statistic review videos, Boise State chances of the New Year's Six. I'll be making tons of content throughout the season, so make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. Again, if you haven't watched my previous two videos, go back and watch those, and it's going to be a great season. So I hope to see some of you guys at the UCF game, and as always, go Big Blue.